Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Paul Graney. Here today's top stories. The third impeachment trial in the history of the nation began in the Senate today, with the jury still out on just how long the trial will last. The U.S. trade deal with Mexico and Canada passes the Senate today. It's now heading to President Trump's desk to be signed. The president announces updated federal guidelines on school prayer. He also proposed rolling back what he called discriminatory regulations. A missing woman with dementia was found alive in her snowbound vehicle. This after a helicopter spotted her SUV. And schools are considering using facial recognition technology to improve campus security. Some support it, but others are uncomfortable with the approach. The Senate's impeachment trial of President Trump has begun. The Chief Justice of the United States was sworn in this afternoon. He then immediately swore in the entire Senate body with an oath to ensure impartial justice.
After making the short trip across the street from the Supreme Court, Chief Justice John Roberts arrived at the Senate chamber. He is set to preside over the impeachment trial of President Trump, as mandated by the Constitution.
You will do impartial justice according to the Constitution and the laws, so help you God.
I do.
God bless you.
After being sworn in himself, Roberts did the same for the Senate body. But Roberts will not be an active participant. He is only expected to serve as a referee for the proceedings. Instead, senators will decide the verdict. Both House managers and Trump's team will present their cases for convicting or acquitting Trump, who faces charges of obstructing Congress and abusing his office. Senators won't be allowed to speak during the trial. They'll submit written questions through Roberts after hearing both sides. It's not clear how long a trial will last. The White House said Wednesday it expects it will last 2 weeks, while some senators say it could last as long as 2 months. Both sides are expected to start presenting their cases next week after the Senate votes on initial trial guidelines.
Mr. Bennett.
A nonpartisan congressional watchdog is saying that the White House violated federal law by withholding security aid approved by lawmakers for Ukraine.
A government watchdog on Thursday said the White House broke the law when it blocked congressionally approved military aid to Ukraine last summer. The White House's decision back in July to suspend military aid quickly raised alarms at the Pentagon, the State Department, and in Kiev.
We were told in that meeting by the OMB representative that they were objecting to proceeding with the assistance because the president had so directed through the chief of staff, acting chief of staff.
But U.S. officials testified they believed the president was after something specific. He wanted Ukraine to open corruption probes into a firm called Burisma, linked to his rival, U.S. Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden's son. Those efforts, they say, were led by the president's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani.
I later came to believe that the resumption of security aid would not occur until there was a public statement from Ukraine committing to the investigations of the 2016 elections and Burisma, as Mr. Giuliani had demanded.
And the president's Republican allies defended Donald Trump's right to suspend the assistance.
He's not a big fan of foreign aid. He might be a little concerned about sending the hard-earned tax dollars of the American people to Ukraine.
The GOA is a nonpartisan arm of Congress. Its findings have no legally binding authority and it has no prosecutorial power. But the timing is notable. Coming the same day, the U.S. Senate takes the first steps toward a trial over whether to remove the president from office.
The Senate approved the U.S. trade deal with Mexico and Canada today. It's expected to boost economic growth and help businesses and workers.
The Senate passed Trump's trade deal with Canada and Mexico Thursday, sending it to his desk. With 89 yeas and 10 nays, the U.S. Senate passed the USMCA trade agreement on Thursday, one day after President Trump signed the Phase 1 trade deal with China. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell called the agreement a landmark trade deal.
This is a major step for our whole country. In the 26 years since the ratification of NAFTA, trade with Mexico and Canada has come to directly support 12 million American jobs, 12 million workers and their families who depend on robust trade with our North American neighbors.
The USMCA is a revamp of NAFTA, which President Trump blamed for companies moving factories to Mexico for cheap labor. The new pact was signed by the leaders of 3 countries in November 2018, but was later changed after months of negotiations between the administration and House Democrats. It includes stronger protections for American workers, manufacturers, and farmers, and stricter rules of origin for automobiles and auto parts. A digital trade chapter was also included for the first time. The House passed the bill in December. With the Senate's approval, it now goes to President Trump's desk for his signature.
And today, students discriminated for their faith stood beside President Trump as he announced updated guidelines on prayer in schools.
Surrounded by religious students, advocates, and leaders, President Trump on Thursday announced updates on guidelines for school prayer.
We're proudly announcing historic steps to protect the First Amendment right to pray in public schools. So you have the right to pray, and that's a very important and powerful right. There's nothing more important than that, I would say.
The Department of Education said it hasn't updated its prayer guidance since 2003. Now it's making it clear to states that they have to provide a clear process for students and others to report incidences where their right to pray was violated.
In public schools around the country, authorities are stopping students and teachers from praying, sharing their faith, or following their religious beliefs. It is totally unacceptable. You see it on the football field. You see it so many times where they're stopped from praying.
The Trump administration also proposed rolling back Obama-era regulations.
9 federal agencies are also proposing new rules to roll back discriminatory regulations.
Under an Obama-era executive order, if someone complained to a social service program that gets federal money about its religious character, that organization would have to refer them to another provider. But the Trump administration's proposed rule would eliminate that requirement, so organizations, secular or faith-based, would no longer need to make referrals.
Phase 1 of the US-China trade deal will boost China's purchase of US agricultural goods. How is it going to affect farmers and the agriculture industry? NTD's Catherine Nguyen has more.
Under the Phase 1 trade deal with China signed on Wednesday, China will import more U.S. agricultural products. How is it going to help farmers and the ag industry? NTD spoke to agriculture broker Craig Turner on Thursday, who develops strategies for farmers and others in the ag industry. He says many people are glad that things are returning to normal.
I'm at actually a farmers conference right now in Kansas City, and everyone's very excited that this trade deal will get done. We know that. I think it's relief. I think it's just nice to see things getting back to normal.
Turner says now farmers and others in the agriculture industry can have a better expectation of the market supply and demand and product price.
When the trade war was going on, there were farmers worrying about, if they couldn't sell it and the prices were down the dumps, they might be worried about going out of business. And I think that worry's now taken off the table, right?
During most of the last decade, U.S. agricultural exports to China have been between $20 to $30 billion. It dropped to less than $10 billion in 2018 because of the trade war. Under the terms of the trade deal, China will buy $32 billion more worth of U.S. agricultural products over the next 2 years. Some doubt that number is realistic, but Turner seems to think it's achievable.
It's not a huge stretch, I don't think. When you consider about the money and the tariffs and everything that's involved, another $5 or $10 billion in ag products in the big picture of the trade between the United States and China is not a big deal.
Another problem is, because of the trade war, China has shifted its purchases to Brazil and Argentina.
It appears the Trump administration has not addressed the fact that China has existing contracts with countries like Brazil and Argentina. They don't need any more of our products, certainly not the amount that's been talked about.
But Turner is still optimistic.
So the way it works in the grain markets, you can have a contract with Brazil and Argentina. China used to have a contract with us. They still do. Sales are canceled or switched for origin all the time.
He added that China would want the tariffs to come down before a Phase 2 deal. But President Trump said on Wednesday the tariffs will be lifted after the Phase 2 deal.
Another banner day for the U.S. stock market. All 3 indices closing with all-time highs today. The S&P 500 rallied through the 3,300 mark for the first time. The other main U.S. indexes also surged to record highs, fueled by tech stocks, solid retail sales data, and upbeat quarterly earnings from Morgan Stanley. And billionaire and presidential hopeful Michael Bloomberg rallies his supporters at his Women for Mike event in New York City.
We need a president who will protect the health and rights of all women.
Multi-billionaire Michael Bloomberg rallies his female supporters at the Women for Mike event on the campaign trail in New York City. His supercharged campaign budget includes over $200 million in TV and digital ads, which is about half of all the other campaigns, including Trump's, combined.
We're running a national campaign across this country where we are trying to reach all Americans, introduce who Mike is, introduce his record.
Candidate Bloomberg says that he'll be tough on gun control, stand up for women's rights, make college more affordable, and provide better health care. And some of his supporters from New York are confident that he can do that.
Has donated millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to help people around the world. That's his own money.
One supporter questions Bloomberg's popularity nationwide.
Some of middle America might be mildly skeptical to have a successful businessman from New York that's also Jewish. I don't know if the world is necessarily on board for that.
Bloomberg has recently taken flack for his rude comments towards women at his workplace, which he says he regrets saying. Kevin Hogan, NTD News, New York.
A missing woman with dementia was found alive in her snowbound sports utility vehicle. She managed to survive the ordeal by making the best of what she had access to in the SUV.
Authorities say a 68-year-old woman with dementia who went missing 6 days ago was discovered alive in her snow-covered SUV in Northern California. The Butte County Sheriff's Office said her vehicle was spotted from a helicopter over the remote community of Butte Meadows. The Sheriff's Office posted on Twitter that the helicopter landed and 2 searchers hiked to the vehicle, finding Paula Beth James inside. James went missing on January 9th. She is from a city about 50 miles from where she was found. Authorities say James is now hospitalized in stable condition. James' family said she stayed warm in the car by periodically turning on the heat and covering herself with moving blankets and floor mats.
A dramatic video shows a small plane crashing in a Utah neighborhood yesterday. Authorities say the pilot has died, but there are no other casualties reported.
An explosion after a small plane crashed in a Utah neighborhood. Police told local media debris from the plane crashed through the roof of a home, but nobody was inside at the time. Police say the crash occurred in Roy, about 30 miles north of Salt Lake City, near a small airport in Ogden. Photos and videos that people posted online showed the wreckage on fire, with flames a few feet high topped by black smoke on a street with houses on both sides. Police say the pilot has died. The pilot has been identified as David Good. He was the founder of a Utah-based ski tech company. He was 64. His company issued a statement on social media following his passing. According to the statement, Good was an accomplished athlete and a recipient of the USA Water Ski Hall of Fame. The National Transportation Safety Board said on Twitter that it is currently investigating the crash.
And coming up next, a new pneumonia virus in China has just caused a second death. It has also spread to other countries, causing concern about a potential global outbreak.
Every once in a while, something comes along so masterful, it leaves you in awe. So inspiring, it changes your life. So beautiful, you wish it would never end. When that happens, it's something not to be missed. Shen Yun, an all-new production every year.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
Authorities in China are reporting a second death from a new SARS-like virus, causing concerns it could spread globally.
Chinese authorities say a second person has died from the new mysterious pneumonia. The virus has left dozens of people ill in the Chinese city Wuhan and has spread to other countries. Japan on Thursday confirmed one case of the new China coronavirus. The person fell ill after visiting the Chinese city. Thailand and Hong Kong also have patients confirmed with the virus. There are suspected cases in South Korea and Singapore. Chinese authorities say there's no evidence the disease passes between humans, but the World Health Organization says it's possible and has warned hospitals worldwide. China has not reported any case of infection since January 3rd. Microbiologist Sean Lin questions the official information, saying the cases continue to emerge overseas.
Why other cities in China or cities near Wuhan has not identified any suspected cases? This is actually a really weird situation.
Wuhan, where the virus was first detected, is a transit hub of China. The Asian country is about to welcome the Lunar New Year. Hundreds of millions of people will be passing through the city. The latest outbreak has sparked scary memories of the SARS epidemic 18 years ago. China covered up the plagues for weeks. The virus spread, killed more than 700 people, and infected more than 8,000 around the world. A German virologist has said the new virus is SARS, only a different variant. But so far, neither the WHO nor China say they have a clear clinical picture of the virus. There's currently no treatment or vaccine available for SARS. Penny Zhou, NTD News.
The U.S. State Department has issued a Watch Level 1 travel alert to China, warning Americans traveling to Wuhan to avoid contact with animals, among other precautions. And Hong Kong's security minister said yesterday that police will consider any method to handle ongoing protests in the city, causing fears that police will soon be armed with more weapons to use against protesters.
On Wednesday, a lawmaker in a legislative council meeting asked Security Secretary John Lee Ka-cho if electroshock devices were being considered for deployment. He did not deny it. Chairman of the Junior Police Officers Association says these stun weapons are less lethal and the effects on suspects are temporary. Director of Hong Kong Human Rights Monitor warns electroshock devices can be deadly if used on someone with an underlying health condition. Amnesty International also called for tighter restrictions on such weapons, adding they should only be used in situations where police would otherwise consider using firearms. The global head of Human Rights Watch, Kenneth Roth, was denied entry to Hong Kong on Sunday. He was expected to launch the report there that covers the global human rights situation, but features China prominently.
Our point is that when police respond, whether to violence or to peaceful protest, they have to do it within the rules on legitimate use of force. We've seen severe beating of protesters, which is not an appropriate response to peaceful or violent protesters.
On Thursday, Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam rejected claims of police brutality. She appeared in a question and answer session in the city's legislative council, and the opposition politicians urged the government to respond to the demands of protesters.
And coming up, increased school violence in recent years is causing some to consider using facial recognition to prevent future threats on campus. But not everyone is on board with the idea.
Viewers have described China Uncensored like The Daily Show, but about China.
At the beginning, I was super excited when I got 500 views, and now the show's grown to about 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. One episode reached 7.9 million people. I'm a little freaked out that that many people have seen my face. In 5 years, I see China Uncensored as the sole source of edutainment worldwide.
We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. The Epoch Times is independent. We're not controlled by any special interests, and we never will be. The Epoch Times is a non-partisan media. That means we don't stand for any political party. This is a battle between truth and deceit, a battle between forces that would ensnare this country in ignorance, and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
School shootings and violence on campus in American schools have led to growing concerns about safety. Some schools are considering using facial recognition technology to stop the violence before it happens, but there are mixed feelings about the approach.
This week, 2 nonprofit groups announced they are teaming up to work on a nationwide campaign, hoping to stop facial recognition from seeping into U.S. schools.
It's easier to prevent this from happening than to try to undo it in the future.
Their campaign is part of a larger strategy to push for getting legislation passed, which would ban facial recognition technology from all public spaces. A recent study conducted by National Institute of Standards and Technology found that people from certain demographics are at risk for being falsely identified, which the nonprofits say is a cause for concern.
The implementation of facial recognition on campus would exacerbate existing forms of discrimination within higher education as well as within the criminal justice system. This isn't just about privacy or technology, it's also about basic human rights and justice for everyone.
One of the most recent places the technology has popped up is in the Lockport School District in New York State.
The programmers can make the software do a variety of things. It could alert school personnel that somebody unknown is on the premises. It could control physical access systems like a electronic door lock.
One reason for using the technology is to protect students from violence on campus by identifying flagged individuals and detecting guns. But some think this isn't the only way to go.
I believe rather than using facial recognition, I think there are human ways to stop that.
Facial recognition in U.S. schools is not a very common phenomenon yet. However, it is quite a controversial topic.
If that's going to be one of the factors that is going to help us, then I'm with it, 100%.
To me, that would seem to be a violation of constitutional protections that we have.
Right now, it is unclear how many U.S. schools are taking steps towards using facial recognition or are already using it. School safety is a major concern for many, and as this controversy with facial recognition moves forward, we will see how schools handle the pressing concern of safety and security. Reporting from New York, Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
Americans got hit hard last year with Newsom's robocalls. Blocking service UMail says nearly 59 billion were made in 2019. That's up 22% from 2018 and almost double 2017. Last year, Texas and California got the most robocalls at more than 6 billion each. Scams make up the largest category of the calls. To tackle the problem, President Trump recently signed a new anti-robocall bill. Officials can now fine companies $10,000 for each illegally placed call. And Australian firefighters battle to save the world's last stand of dinosaur trees from the bushfire. These trees are one of the oldest left in the world.
A team of specialist firefighters were able to save the world's last group of Wallamai pines from wildfires. These trees are known as one of the oldest in the world.
Well, these pines outlived the dinosaurs, so when we saw the fire approaching, we realized we had to do everything we could to save them.
Keane says the tree-saving mission was a military-style operation. Aircrafts dropped fire retardant, and firefighters were hoisted into the gorge to establish irrigation systems. Wallamai pines are also known as dinosaur trees. The one standing in Wallamai National Park is the last batch in the world. Keane says there are only 200 of these trees left on the planet.
We needed to do everything we could to protect them and ensure that they were able to survive into the future.
The exact location of the forest remains a top secret so that authorities can protect them from vandalism and illegal collection. The dinosaur trees were thought to be extinct until they were rediscovered in 1994.
And coming up next, dozens of dogs and their owners take on the challenge of dog sledding through the French Alps.
Our investigative reporters at the Epoch Times have spent 18 months uncovering the biggest political scandal in modern history. We connected the dots around Spygate, the actions by Obama-era officials against Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. Join me on Declassified as we bring you up-to-date developments on this unfolding scandal.
Are you tired of newspapers spinning the truth and pushing false narratives? And are you looking for honest coverage of Spygate, the true story of collusion? Or the truth behind the crisis at our southern border? Or how the Chinese Communist Party is working to subvert America and our way of life? Then you need to check out the Epoch Times newspaper. It's independent, nonpartisan, and it doesn't push any political agendas. Just go to readepoch.com and try it yourself for a full month for just $1. You'll absolutely love it.
Dozens of dogs and their owners braved the French Alps yesterday as part of this year's dog sledding challenge on Mont Blanc.
All eyes were on the dogs as dozens of dogs and their drivers readied for the dog sledding challenge in the French Alps. This is the 16th edition of La Grande Odyssey. It's one of the hardest international dog sled races in the world. Dogs can be seen pulling at their harnesses, eager to run. The nearly 250-mile course is divided into 20 stations. Around 50,000 spectators line the course to cheer on the dogs and their masters. The event kicked off on Saturday with 55 dog sled drivers and 500 sled dogs. The teams hailed from all over Europe, including France, Sweden, Spain, and Germany. The race will run until January 22nd.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Paul Graney.